Today for our daily cancellation, I must again, unfortunately, cancel people on my own side, or at least theoretically on my own side. These are the conservatives who, over the past few days, have been frantically applauding their latest hero, their newly elected spokesman, their trendiest new conservative champion, Jeffree Starr. And for those unfamiliar, as I was until 2 days ago, Starr is a social media influencer and owner of a popular, I think, cosmetics brand. Starr also enjoys dressing like a woman. But this flamboyant cross-dressing makeup salesman earned applause from many on the right, including prominent figures on the right, when he appeared on a podcast and said this.
I'm not into all the other I think.
What other
the they and them.
Yeah.
And all that extra that we added during the pandemic because everyone was so bored on their houses. They just started to make up more and
more stuff?
Yeah. That's where the conservatives like me because I'm just real.
Yeah, you do have a conservative vibe to you.
You're not they and them. You're trans, you're male or you're female.
And you're standing on that.
Get so mad when I say that. How are you a they? What the does that mean? It's stupid is what it is.
Yeah.
But you need someone like me that looks like me to say it. Because if you say it, it turns into you're homophobic. You hate trans people. You hate gays. And it's just how you feel. You don't hate anyone. You just think it's stupid.
Now that, what you just heard, makes Jeffree Starr based, apparently. He's based now. He said one thing that conservatives like, and they were on the scene with pom-poms in no time. And yes, Starr is right that the they-them stuff is BS, of course, obviously. But the problem, one of them anyway, is that he rejects non-binary while affirming trans. He says that the only valid categories are trans, male, or female. And to drive that point home, he made another video responding to the backlash against his anti-they-them commentary, where he reiterated his support for and belief in transgenderism. Here it is.
I just went on and I saw a few outlets saying that I'm transphobic. Jeffree Starr, who has 5 transgender employees. I have over 100 employees of all different ethnicities. A brand that is inclusive to the entire world. What we're not going to do is lie. So if you posted an article saying anything like that, you better delete it, Miss Thing, because I'm coming. All I said was I don't agree with pronouns. That's it. So you know how Cardi B sued that woman and, well, the lady don't have any money, but Cardi B won, allegedly, a lot of money from the lawsuit, even though she'll never get it. It's still the point of she won. That was phenomenal for someone like me that has been abused and dragged through the mud. Now, we all know all my past mistakes, girl. Every time that I have an opinion, everyone has to bring up everything from the past. That's getting so old, but the support and the understanding and the common sense from millions of people that I've seen over the last few days, it made me realize the planet's not that awful. Like, people get it. It's just social media, and they love to drag Miss Jeffree Lynn. Also, shout out to so many amazing, beautiful transgender people and the LGBT community in my DMs, writing me. Just thank you.
I'm sorry about that. This is just too much. Between this guy and the Gloria Johnson tweet, it's just the amount of brain cells we're losing. It's like the effect of a concussion. We are all now concussed effectively because of the level of stupidity that we've been forced, that I have forced you to encounter today. But very inspiring response from this right-wing warrior who desperately defends himself from the transphobia claims by bragging about all the trans people he employs. I suppose it just goes to show that Democrats really are the real transphobes. Of course, check back in about 5 years and people on the right will be defending transgenderism and non-binary, but then claiming that trans speciesism is where they draw the line. And somehow that position will be applauded as not only correct, but based. See, this is how it works as the Overton window continues its relentless march to the left. What was a fringe left-wing view yesterday suddenly becomes mainstream today, and the fringe today will be mainstream tomorrow. Meanwhile, the oblivious faction of conservatives, a rather large group, unfortunately, continue to embrace any position that is not at this moment on the extreme left-wing fringe. As long as it's not the most extreme version of leftism, they embrace it. Which means that tomorrow they will embrace whatever is on the extreme left-wing fringe today. Jeffree Starr's conservative defenders have told me that, well, we should accept him into the fold because he is, they say, mostly right about the gender issue. But he's not mostly right. He's not even in the neighborhood of right. He's not in the I don't know what planet he's even on, let alone the neighborhood. He believes that a person can identify as and actually be a member of the opposite sex. He affirms transgenderism. It's just that he prefers to stick with the term transgender to describe those people and believes that non-binary is extra and redundant. And he's right that it is redundant. As non-binary versus transgenderism, that is a distinction without a difference. That doesn't make him more right or closer to the truth. He's not suddenly a defender of truth and tradition because he prefers to stick with the craziest left-wing ideas from yesterday rather than adopting the craziest ideas from today. In fact, non-binary isn't even really crazier than transgenderism. These terms are, again, redundant. They are versions of the same nonsense. Starr prefers using one term for the nonsense rather than two. This apparently is enough to make him our generation's William F. Buckley. The left here is using a classic manipulation technique. You make an outrageous demand so that a slightly less outrageous demand seems reasonable by comparison. We should all be familiar with this strategy. It's the oldest one in the book, right? Kids use it all the time. Just a few nights ago, my son came up to me after dinner and said, "Daddy, can we all go get ice cream?" Now, asking me to load all 6 kids in the car after dinner when I already have my sweatpants and slippers on definitely qualifies as an outrageous demand. That's one thing they know. Once the slippers come out, I'm not going anywhere. We are here for the night. So I said no, and then he immediately followed it up with, "Okay, well then can we just watch a movie?" Now, in that case, I knowingly allowed myself to be suckered by the strategy and I let them watch a movie. But on a cultural level, in the battle with the left, we cannot be so easily duped by these kinds of tricks. Just because non-binary is arguably a little weirder than trans, that doesn't make trans legitimate or any closer to legitimate than it was before. Celebrating Jeffree Starr on this point, it's like if somebody was beating you over the head with a baseball bat and then Jeffree Starr ran in and said, "No, don't beat him over the head with a baseball bat. Just stomp on his face with your boot instead. Here, I'll help." Now, it's true that getting stomped is probably a little better than being bludgeoned with a bat, but does that automatically make the person stomping on your face an ally? Would you applaud this person as they kick you in the skull and say, "Wow, this guy's great. We should invite him to CPAC"? No, he's still your enemy. He's still trying to kill you, just perhaps in a slightly less efficient manner. See, the curse of the big tent conservatism approach is that now our tent is filled with people who are directly trying to undermine our cause. A big tent doesn't do you a lot of good when you're inviting people under it who will just try to rip it down and leave all of us standing in the rain, which is what's happening. One last point on all this. Starr says that we need someone who looks like him to say the things that he says, because if we say it, that is, if normal people who aren't cross-dressing circus performers say it, then we will be called bigots and transphobes. Well, except this logic is refuted by his follow-up video in which he defends himself against accusations of bigotry and transphobia. So it turns out that tokenism is not actually an effective strategy here. We cannot insulate ourselves from criticism by putting our arguments into the mouths of people who fall into identity categories that the left usually celebrates. Okay, I don't know how conservatives keep thinking this strategy will work. It never has. It never will. It doesn't work. Like, can you give me an example of someone who's in one of these identity groups and they make a conservative, well, not even conservative, they make a slightly less left-wing argument and the left goes, "Well, normally I disagree with that, but this person is an identity group that we support, so I think we'll take it into consideration." Has that ever happened? Is there one example of that working? No, it doesn't, because the left values ideological conformity over all else. Their vision of diversity is one in which people of all races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, except white males, and made-up genders come together to march in lockstep and speak in unison. Anybody who misses a beat or forgets a line or tries to improvise will be cast out as not only a bigot, but a traitor as well. See, as it turns out, the people from protected classes who disagree with the left are not given softer treatment or a better chance at a fair hearing. If anything, they're shouted down all the louder and hated all the more, because on top of saying the things that the left hates, there's also the element of betrayal, because the left says, "Well, you're supposed to belong to us because of your identity." That doesn't make the heretic more credible in the eyes of the left. It just makes them a heretic. Just look at Jeffree Starr. He agrees with the left on nearly everything, and he's living exactly the kind of lifestyle they promote, but they still exile him for mildly criticizing one small facet of gender ideology. Well, that doesn't make him our ally or our friend. But it does prove that this whole, you need people like me to make this argument claim is moot. No, we don't need people like him to make the argument. We don't need a cross-dressing trans activist with neck tattoos and copious amounts of makeup to make the argument. You know who we need? This goes back to the beginning of the show. We need normal people. Normal people like you. Normal, common sense people who live normal lives and dress and act like normal people. We need them to speak up and be advocates. Because after all, normalcy is what we're trying to defend, isn't it? The best defender of normalcy is a normal person. And not just one normal person, but legions of them. An army of normal people demanding a return to sanity and common sense and basic moral decency. Jeffree Starr is not ever going to be an effective champion for that cause. But you can be. And that is why Jeffree Starr and his conservative defenders are today canceled. That'll do it for this portion of the show. So move over to the members block. If you're not a member yet, you can become a member by using code Walsh at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Hope to see you over there. If not, talk to you tomorrow. Godspeed.